The arrival. The endless void of space stretched before the mighty Velkar Empire's fleet. Dozens of warships, sleek and silver, moved like silent predators toward their target, a small blue-green planet on the edge of the galaxy. Vega Prime. Commander Teleris, a seasoned Velkar warrior, stood at the bridge of his battleship, the Dreadwing. He looked at the holographic display before him, watching as the planet's surface rotated slowly. A small human colony sat near the northern hemisphere, its lights flickering in the dark. Such a fragile world, he muttered. Teleris had crushed hundreds of civilizations before. The Velkar Empire never lost. They had ruled the galaxy for centuries, expanding their empire, enslaving weaker species, and destroying those who resisted. And now it was the humans' turn. A young officer approached, bowing slightly. "Commander, we have scanned the planet. Their defenses are weak. Their fleet is nowhere in sight." Teleris smirked, just as he expected. Humans were primitive creatures. He had read the reports, barely a century ago. They were still fighting wars with bullets and bombs on their own planet. How could they possibly stand against the Velkar Armada? He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel." A second later, the speakers crackled. A human face appeared on the main screen. A woman in a dark uniform. Calm. Too calm. Teleris grinned, showing his sharp, predatory teeth. "You are in violation of imperial law. By order of the Velkar Dominion, your colony will be annexed. Surrender, and your people will be spared. Resist, and you will be." The human woman cut him off. "This is your only warning. Leave now, or be destroyed." The bridge fell silent. Teleris blinked. For a moment, he thought he had misheard. Then he burst into laughter. His officers followed, their voices echoing through the command deck. This was absurd. A human. A species so weak they weren't even considered a threat, threatening the Velkar Empire. Teleris wiped a tear from his eye. "You dare to threaten us? Do you even know who you are speaking to?" The woman didn't react. Her expression never changed. Cold. Empty. A sinking feeling crawled up Teleris's spine. Something about her gaze was wrong. There was no fear. No desperation. Just certainty. The transmission ended. "Commander." The officer at the sensor station spoke. "What are your orders?" Teleris growled. "Prepare the fleet. I want that colony destroyed. Alarm. Warning. Multiple energy, Sci-Gene HURESDTT'd." The command deck shook violently as the ship's automated defense systems roared to life. Teleris spun around. "Report. What just happened?" The officer's face was pale. "Yes, sir. Our forward fleet. It's gone." Teleris frowned. "What do you mean gone? How many ships?" The officer hesitated, then whispered, "All of them." A cold silence fell over the bridge. Teleris rushed to the main viewing screen. His stomach twisted. Out of the 12 Velkar warships that had been leading the assault, nothing remained. No debris. No wreckage. Just empty space. His hands clenched into fists. This had to be some kind of trick. Maybe a cloaked enemy. Maybe. New contact detected. The officer shouted. Teleris turned to the screen just in time to see it. A single warship emerged from the darkness of space, moving with an eerie, unnatural grace. It was black. No lights. No markings. Just a massive, silent shadow. Teleris felt his throat tighten. What is that? The sensors struggled to scan it. The readings were impossible. One moment, the ship appeared massive, larger than an entire city. The next, it barely existed, flickering in and out of detection like a phantom. The officer gulped. "Sir, it's a human warship." Teleris's mind screamed no. That was impossible. Humans didn't have this kind of technology. And yet there it was. It didn't open fire. It didn't broadcast any threats. It simply existed. and that was enough to send a chill through every Velkar warrior. Teleris forced himself to stay calm. Raise shields. Prepare weapons. I want that ship destroyed. His officers obeyed, fingers moving across control panels. The Velkar fleet locked onto the human vessel. Cannons hummed. Plasma turrets charged. Then, the lights flickered. For a moment, everything went dark. Then the ship's alarms screamed again. We've lost all targeting systems. Teleris slammed his fists against the console. Fire manually. But nothing happened. The weapons were offline. The shields were down. The fleet's entire system was dead. Teleris's stomach twisted. The humans hadn't just disabled their weapons. They had disarmed the entire fleet in seconds. His breathing grew shallow. Impossible. Then, the human ship finally spoke. A single message. Cold. Final. We warned you. Then the darkness swallowed the first Velkar ship. And the slaughter began. The Velkar Empire laughs. Commander Teleris had never known fear. He had conquered countless worlds for the Velkar Empire, crushed resistance before it could rise, and watched civilizations burn under the might of his war fleets. But now, for the first time in his life, he felt it. Fear, the human warship, a dark, shifting phantom in the void, had wiped out an entire Velkar attack group in seconds. No weapons fired, no explosions. They simply vanished. And now it was watching them. A deathly silence filled the bridge of the Dreadwing. Every officer, every crew member sat frozen at their stations. No one spoke, no one moved, because the Velkar fleet's weapons were dead. No shields, no targeting systems, no propulsion. They were completely vulnerable. Teleris's throat was dry. How? How had the humans done this? Their technology should have been inferior. They should have been easy prey. And yet, here they were. A soft beeping sound broke the silence. "Commander," the communications officer whispered, his voice trembling. "We are receiving a transmission from the capital." Teleris inhaled sharply. He already knew what this was. The Velkar Emperor himself was watching. On screen, Teleris ordered, forcing his voice to stay steady. A large hologram flickered to life. A tall, imposing figure stood before them. The Emperor of the Velkar Dominion, Vorkon the Unyielding. His golden armor gleamed, his piercing red eyes burning with anger. "Teleris," the Emperor's voice rumbled. "Explain yourself." Teleris swallowed hard. He had never seen the Emperor look so furious. "My lord," he began, choosing his words carefully. "We encountered unexpected resistance. The humans have." He hesitated. "Advanced technology." The Emperor narrowed his eyes. "And what do you mean by unexpected resistance?" Teleris's claws clenched at his sides. "Their warship disabled our fleet in an instant. Our weapons do not work. Our systems are dead." A long silence followed. Then, the Emperor laughed. It was a deep, echoing sound, filled with mockery. The officers on the bridge shifted uncomfortably. "You tell me," the Emperor sneered, "that a single human warship has crippled the Velkar fleet." Teleris lowered his gaze. "Yes, my lord." The Emperor shook his head. Pathetic. His gaze sharpened. "You will fire everything you have. I do not care if your targeting systems are down. Overload your cannons if you must. I want that ship reduced to dust." Teleris hesitated. This was not just another enemy. He could feel it. Something about the humans was different, but he could not disobey. "As you command, my lord." The hologram vanished. Teleris exhaled. He turned to his officers. "Prepare to fire manually. Charge all remaining plasma batteries." His crew hesitated. Some of them looked at each other, fear flickering in their eyes. But they obeyed. A hum filled the ship as what little power remained was redirected to the weapons. The Velkar fleet, dozens of mighty warships, prepared to fire everything they had. Teleris turned back to the viewing screen. The human warship still hovered in the void, completely motionless. It didn't move. It didn't attack. It was waiting. Talaris took a deep breath. He raised his arm. Fire. The bridge lights flickered as plasma cannons overloaded, discharging their full power. Massive beams of blue energy shot toward the human vessel. Talaris clenched his fists. Let's see how strong you really are. Then, something impossible happened. The plasma beams bent. Right before impact, the energy curved away, spiraling into nothingness. Talaris's eyes widened. What? The officers stared in horror. It was not a shield. It was not armor. The human ship had simply denied reality, as if physics itself had decided that the Velkar Empire was no longer allowed to fight back. Talaris took a step back. Then the human warship spoke. No transmission. No sound. A single message appeared on every screen, in every Velkar language. We warned you. Talaris barely had time to react. The human warship fired, but there was no explosion. No blinding beam of energy. Just darkness. A pulse of pure black energy rippled outward. The moment it touched the first Velkar warship, the ship vanished. No debris. No wreckage. Just gone. One by one, the Velkar ships disappeared, consumed by the void. Talaris screamed as his ship was the last to be swallowed. Then, silence. The mighty Velkar fleet was no more. And the humans hadn't even tried. The first strike. The Velkar armada was gone. Not destroyed. Not scattered. Erased. And yet, the Vectar, a small Velkar scout ship, survived. Commander Rathis watched in horror from the shadows of a distant asteroid field. His ship had arrived late, trailing behind the fleet to monitor the invasion from a safe distance. Now, he wished he had never come. The human warship, a massive, black phantom, hovered in space, completely still. It did not pursue the remaining Velkar vessels. It did not send any messages. It simply existed. And that was terrifying enough. Commander, a voice trembled behind him. It was his communications officer, Javel. Go ahead, Rathis said, barely keeping his voice steady. Javel gulped. We have received a message from the Emperor. He demands an update on the battle. Rathis turned to him slowly. An update. His voice was hollow. How could he explain what he had just witnessed? How could he tell the Emperor that an entire Velkar battle fleet, the strongest in the Empire, had been wiped from existence in seconds? He took a deep breath. Send the message. Javel nodded and pressed a few controls. The main screen flickered to life, and once again, Emperor Vortin appeared. But this time, the Emperor's confidence was gone. His red eyes were sharp, his lips pressed into a thin line. He had expected victory. Now, he was waiting for an explanation. Rathis, the Emperor said coldly, where is the fleet? Rathis swallowed hard. How could he answer that? They, my lord, they are gone. The Emperor's expression did not change. Gone. Rathis forced himself to speak. The humans, they erased them. No wreckage. No remains. They simply vanished. The Emperor's fingers tightened around the golden armrests of his throne. The sound of metal cracking filled the air. He did not believe it. I warned Talaris, the Emperor muttered, almost to himself. The humans were an unknown factor, and now we know. Rathis hesitated. My lord, what are your orders? The Emperor leaned forward, his red eyes glowing. Rally the Second Armada. Rathis's blood ran cold. The Second Armada. That was every warship in the Velkar Empire. The Emperor was preparing for total war. Rathis knew that meant only one thing. The Velkar Dominion was afraid. The transmission ended. Silence filled the command deck. Javel swallowed. Commander, should we leave? Rathis turned back to the screen. The human warship was still there. It had not moved, not attacked. It had sent a message, a warning, and Talaris had ignored it. Rathis knew the Empire was making the same mistake. "We run," he whispered, "and we pray." Meanwhile, on the human flagship, Revenant, Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the U.S. Revenant, watching as the last of the Velkar ships vanished into nothing. The battle had been short, if he could even call it a battle. The Velkar had expected a primitive species. They had come for war. They had come to dominate. But they had been too late. Humanity had evolved. For 100 years, Earth had been silent. The galactic powers had assumed they were weak, fractured. But that silence had been preparation. And now, the universe would understand. Kane turned to his communications officer. "Send a message." The officer nodded, waiting for the command. Kane's voice was calm, controlled, final. "To the Velkar Empire. You did not listen. You thought you were gods. Now, you will learn the truth. We are the storm, and we are coming." The chase begins. The Velkar homeworld, Korthan Prime, was in chaos. Inside the Imperial war chambers, the High Council, dozens of the most powerful Velkar rulers, argued among themselves. Holograms of burning fleets and lost warships flickered in the air, showing the unthinkable. The entire First Armada was gone. No survivors, no debris, nothing left. At the center of the chamber, Emperor Vortin sat motionless, his claws tapping against his throne. His red eyes burned with cold fury. For the first time in Velkar history, the Empire had been challenged. For the first time, the Velkar were afraid. A warlord slammed his fist on the table. The humans must have used a forbidden weapon, some kind of black hole device. This is not possible. Another counselor growled. "Our fleets are the strongest in the galaxy. The humans cannot have surpassed us." Vortin silenced them with a single glance. He knew the truth. This was not about weapons. It was something worse. The humans had technology beyond understanding. The Velkar had assumed they were weak, primitive. But now, the Empire was facing extinction. Vortin turned toward the War Marshal, his most trusted general. "How many warships remain?" The War Marshal's voice was grim. "We have mobilized the Second Armada, over 3,000 warships, the largest fleet ever assembled." Vortin's claws tightened. "Then we will burn their homeworld to ash." Meanwhile, in deep space, Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the U.S. Revenant, watching the incoming reports. The Velkar had taken the bait. "They're mobilizing their entire fleet," his tactical officer reported. "Thousands of warships. They're preparing a direct strike against Earth." Kane smirked. Predictable. The Velkar were arrogant creatures. They still thought in primitive terms. More ships, more firepower. They believed victory came from overwhelming force. But they still didn't understand. Humanity had already won. Kane turned to his officers. "Deploy the silent hunters." A ripple ran through space. From the shadows, hundreds of human stealth warships uncloaked. Silent, invisible, waiting. The Second Armada had no idea. They thought they were the hunters. They were about to learn they were the prey. The battle begins. The Velkar Second Armada jumped into deep space, moving toward the human home system. The fleet stretched across the void minus 3,000 warships, enough to shatter a solar system. Inside the command ship Dread Tyrant, Admiral Xaver watched his fleet with pride. "The humans got lucky once," Xaver growled. "This time, they will burn." Then, the lights flickered. Xaver frowned. What was that? The ship's alarms screamed to life. The sensor officer gasped. "Sir, we are detecting." A dark shadow appeared outside the viewport. It wasn't a ship. It was something else. Xaver's blood ran cold. "What is that?" The shadow moved. The nearest Velkar warship vanished. No explosion, no fire, no debris. Just gone. The silent hunters had struck. Xavier screamed, "All ships, fire! Fire at anything you see!" The Velkar fleet panicked. They unleashed everything: plasma cannons, energy torpedoes, antimatter warheads. But there was nothing to hit. The silent hunters moved like ghosts, flickering in and out of detection. One by one, the Velkar warships disappeared. Their great second armada, the strongest force in the galaxy, was being erased. And the humans never even spoke a word. The final message. Admiral Kane watched from the Revenant, his arms crossed. "They're breaking," his officer reported. "The Velkar are retreating." Kane nodded. "Send them a final message." A transmission was sent to the dread tyrant, where Admiral Xavier stood, shaking, his fleet falling apart around him. A single sentence appeared on every Velkar screen. "We told you to run." Xavier's soul shattered. The Velkar Empire was doomed. The Emperor's nightmare. The Velkar Second Armada, the greatest fleet in their history, was gone. Not defeated, erased. The survivors, the few who managed to flee, arrived back at Corthan Prime in a panic. Velkar warships that had once been symbols of conquest now drifted into the atmosphere like wounded animals. Inside the Imperial war chambers, Emperor Vortin the Unyielding watched in horrified silence. The High Council sat frozen, their pride shattered. Their empire, the unbreakable, unstoppable Velkar Dominion, had just suffered the worst defeat in recorded history. Not to an ancient rival, not to a superior race. To humans. Vortin's hands trembled. How? How had this happened? His empire had ruled for centuries. His fleets had crushed rebellions before they could begin. No species had ever dared to stand against the Velkar Dominion. And now, in a matter of days, it was falling apart. His red eyes flickered to Admiral Xavier, one of the only survivors of the Second Armada. The Admiral stood before the throne, his face pale, his body trembling. Xavier dropped to his knees. "My lord," he whispered, voice shaking, "we are lost." The High Council erupted into chaos. "This cannot be happening," a warlord roared. "They must have an unknown superweapon." Another hissed. Vortin raised his hand, and the chamber fell into silence. His voice was low, cold. "Tell me, Admiral Xavier," he said. "What did you see?" Xavier swallowed hard. "Their ships, they were not normal, my lord." His voice broke. "They were shadows, ghosts. We could not hit them. We could not stop them." The council murmured in disbelief. "They ignored our strongest weapons." Xavier continued. His fingers dug into his own arms. They moved through space like they were not bound by the laws of reality. He looked up at the Emperor, his eyes full of something Vortin had never seen before. Not fear. Despair. "My lord," Xavier whispered, "we are fighting against something we do not understand." The word sent a chill through the room. The Velkar had never feared anyone. But this was not war. This was annihilation. The sky turns black. The warning alarm screamed. A trembling officer ran into the chambers, gasping for breath. "My lord, we have incoming ships." Vortin stood slowly. "How many?" The officer's voice broke. "Just one." The council blinked. "One." The massive holographic display in the center of the chamber flickered to life, and the room fell silent. It was here. The human warship. Not a fleet. Not an armada. Just one ship. Yet it cast a shadow so large it blocked out the sun. Vortin stepped closer to the display, staring at the massive black warship hovering over Corthan Prime. It did not move. It did not fire. It simply waited. A single message appeared on every Velkar screen. "This is your final warning." Vortin clenched his fists. His empire had never surrendered. But for the first time, he considered it. The final warning. The Velkar High Council sat in stunned silence. For centuries, they had been the lords of the galaxy, ruling through fear and power. Civilizations bowed before them, and no one dared to resist. But now, a single human warship hovered over Corthan Prime, blocking out the sun, casting a shadow over their greatest cities, and it had sent only 5 words. "This is your final warning." The Emperor's fingers trembled on the golden armrests of his throne. His red eyes burned with frustration, with disbelief. How had it come to this? The humans hadn't sent an invasion force. They hadn't negotiated. They hadn't even bothered to demand surrender. They had simply arrived, and everything the Velkar had built was crumbling before them. The last stand of the Velkar. Across the planet, Velkar warships scrambled into the sky. Fighters, battleships, and planetary defense platforms took aim at the human vessel. Grand Admiral Xaver, still shaking from his last battle, stood on the command deck of the Warbringer, his last operational flagship. "My lord," a desperate officer spoke, "should we attack?" Xaver hesitated. Attacking the humans had already cost them 2 entire fleets. And yet, what choice did they have? He clenched his fists. "We fire everything." The command spread across the entire Velkar fleet. Thousands of cannons charge. Missiles locked onto the massive human warship. The planetary defense grid glowed with power. Xaver took one last deep breath. Then, fire. The human response. The sky erupted with light. Tens of thousands of energy blasts, plasma rounds, and hyper missiles launched toward the human dreadnought. Every weapon the Velkar had. Every last defense. For the briefest moment, Xaver felt hope. No ship could survive this. Then, something impossible happened. The weapons never reached the target. Not because of shields, not because of countermeasures. The attacks simply vanished. One moment, thousands of beams and missiles rushed toward their target. The next, they were gone. No explosion, no deflection, just erased. Xaver's breath hitched. His mind screamed, "This is not possible." But it was. A deathly silence spread across the Velkar fleet. Xaver felt every eye turned toward him, because now they'd all understood. The humans weren't fighting them. The humans were deciding whether they deserved to exist. The final message. A deep, powerful hum filled the atmosphere. The human dreadnought moved for the first time. Slowly, effortlessly, like a god walking through a field of insects. A new message appeared on every Velkar screen, in every language of the Empire. A final declaration. The war is over. The Velkar Empire is no more. The words were absolute. Final. Xaver's hands shook violently. What? What does that mean? An officer whispered. Then, the human ship charged its main weapon. A sphere of black energy gathered at its core, pulsing like a dying star. It expanded, crackling with power. Xaver knew what was about to happen. They all did. And for the first time in Velkar history, a supreme commander gave an order that had never been spoken before. Retreat. Not tactical repositioning. Not strategic fallback. True, unconditional retreat. The mighty Velkar Dominion was abandoning its homeworld. The fleet turned. Warships fled in every direction. They left their cities, their people, their emperor. They had no choice. Because in that moment, they knew humanity had already won. The end of the Velkar Empire. The Velkar fleet fled. Like vermin scurrying from a burning world, they abandoned Corthan Prime, their home, their legacy, their empire. For centuries, they had ruled the stars. They had enslaved worlds, crushed rebellions, burned civilizations to the ground. And now, they were running. The mighty Velkar Dominion, once the most feared force in the galaxy, was no more. The last words of an emperor. From the grand balcony of his palace, Emperor Vortin watched the skies turn black. His great fleet, the pride of his people, was retreating, vanishing into hyperspace, leaving him behind, abandoned. Beneath him, The streets of Corthan Prime were in chaos. Millions of Velkar citizens looked up at the sky, their faces filled with horror, watching the end of their world unfold. Above them, the human warship remained motionless, like a silent god waiting for judgment. A deep hum vibrated through the atmosphere. The ground shook. The air crackled with energy. And then, for the first time in his life, Vorton the Unyielding knelt. He lowered his head. His claws gripped the cold marble floor. And he spoke his final words. Mercy. The human decision. Aboard the U.S. Revenant, Admiral Kane watched in silence. The entire Velkar civilization, its rulers, its people, its soldiers, was at his mercy. The war had never been a war. It had been an execution. Kane exhaled. He turned to his crew. What is the status of the Velkar fleet? Scattered, sir, the tactical officer responded. They have no central command anymore. They are no longer an empire, just survivors running for their lives. The Velkar Dominion was finished. Kane could end them with a single command. Destroy the planet, burn their cities, erase them from history. He could, but he wouldn't, because humanity was not like them. The final message. Across the Velkar communication channels, a final message echoed. Not a demand, not a threat, a simple truth. This war is over. Do not return. Do not rebuild. There will be no second warning. Then, the U.S. Revenant vanished into hyperspace, leaving Corthan Prime alive, but forever broken. Epilogue. A galaxy changed forever. The news spread across the stars like wildfire. The Velkar Empire was gone. The rulers who once dominated the galaxy were now refugees, scattered, leaderless, lost. And the galaxy learned the truth. Humanity had returned, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as a force that could not be stopped. And every empire, every warlord, every species in the galaxy understood one undeniable fact. Never challenge humanity again. Because if you do, you won't get a second warning.
The day the stars went dark, the obsidian halls of the Galactic Federation Council chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from 47 species gathered in emergency session. Crystalline beings from Zarian floated in their containment pods while the hulking Torban delegates stomped their massive feet in agitation. At the center of the circular chamber, Ambassador Crystal of the Zentari Union raised his forearms for silence. Fellow beings of the galaxy, his voice echoed. Through the universal translators, we face an unprecedented threat. The species from the third planet of the Sol system has expanded beyond acceptable parameters. A holographic display materialized above the chamber, showing Earth's recent colonization efforts. Red markers indicated human settlements on Mars, Europa, and 3 asteroid mining stations. The sight drew hisses and clicks of disapproval from the assembled aliens. In merely 50 years, they have spread like a plague through their system, continued Crickstyle. Their aggressive mining operations, their refusal to follow established galactic protocols, and their alarming military buildup cannot be ignored. Commander Zephin of the Hegemony Defense Force stepped forward. His scaled hide gleamed under the chamber's artificial lights. The humans have ignored 17 formal warnings. They construct weapons under the guise of exploration vessels. They show no respect for established territorial boundaries. The Zarian representatives' crystalline form pulsed with indignant light. They contaminate pristine worlds with their industrial methods. They show no regard for the delicate balance we have maintained for millennia. President Alina Vasquez of Earth sat in the human delegation section, her jaw clenched as she listened to the accusations. She had come to this emergency session hoping for dialogue, but the hostile atmosphere made it clear that the decision had already been made. Crystal-esque voice rose above the murmur of agreement. Therefore, by unanimous vote of the Galactic Federation Council, we hereby impose a complete containment protocol on the Sol system. No human vessel shall pass beyond the heliopause. All trade agreements are terminated. All diplomatic relations are suspended. The chamber erupted in approval. Tentacled beings slapped their appendages together, while insectoid delegates buzzed their wings in agreement. Alina stood to speak, but Crystal's gesture silenced her attempt. The decision is final. Earth will remain isolated until such time as humanity demonstrates the wisdom and restraint required for galactic citizenship. We estimate this period to be no less than 500 Earth years. As the session concluded, Alina watched the alien delegates file out, their satisfaction evident. Her aide, Colonel Marcus Reed, leaned close. "Madam President, the blockade fleet is already moving into position." Within hours, the reality of Earth's isolation became apparent. Massive alien vessels positioned themselves at the edge of the solar system, their energy shields creating an impenetrable barrier. Any human ship attempting to leave was turned back or destroyed. The few human vessels already beyond the blockade were stranded, cut off from home. On Earth, panic spread like wildfire. Stock markets crashed as interstellar trade ground to a halt. The lunar colonies found themselves trapped, their supplies dwindling. Mars Base Alpha went dark after failing. To receive critical medical supplies, Alina stood before a joint session of the United Earth Assembly, her face grave. "Citizens of Earth, we face our darkest hour. The galaxy has turned its back on us, but we are not defeated. Humanity has survived ice ages, world wars, and the threat of extinction. We will survive this. In the Canadian Arctic, buried beneath 2 kilometers of ice and rock, something stirred. Dr. Marcus Chen stood before a massive blast door that hadn't been opened in 30 years. His breath formed clouds in the frigid underground facility as he placed his hand on the biometric scanner. Project Zeus authorization confirmed, announced the synthetic voice. "Welcome back, Dr. Chen." The blast doors groaned open, revealing a chamber that defied imagination. Stretching into the darkness, banks of quantum processors hummed with dormant power. At the center of the facility, a sphere of exotic matter rotated slowly within a containment field, its surface rippling like liquid mercury. Captain Sarah Mitchell descended the metal stairway, her boots ringing against the grating. The former Space Marine had been recalled from retirement when the blockade began. 30 years, Marcus, 30 years, this has been waiting. "We hoped we'd never need it," Chen replied, his voice echoing in the vast space. "But the founders of this project understood something the galaxy doesn't. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our refusal to stay down when someone tries to keep us there." Admiral James Harrison emerged from the shadows, his weathered face grim. "The blockade is holding. We've lost contact with 17 ships. They're not just containing us, they're strangling us." Chen moved to the central console, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Zeus was designed for this exact scenario. When they built this facility in 2089, they called it humanity's insurance policy. "What exactly does it do?" Sarah asked, studying the rotating sphere of exotic matter. "It weaponizes space itself," Chen explained. "The quantum field generators can manipulate the fabric of space-time within a light-year radius. We can create gravitational anomalies, disrupt faster than light travel, even bend light around our ships." Harrison nodded grimly. "The alien blockade depends on their ability to detect and intercept our vessels. If we can blind them, confuse their sensors, we can break free. As Chen initialized the startup sequence, energy coursed through conduits that ran deep into the Earth's core. The exotic matter sphere began to spin faster, its surface crackling with barely contained power. On the surface, President Alina addressed the world once more. My fellow humans, in our darkest hour, we must remember who we are. We are the species that looked at the ocean and built ships. We gazed at the sky and learned to fly. When the galaxy tells us we cannot reach for the stars, we will prove them wrong. Unknown to the watching world, similar facilities activated on Luna, Mars, and Titan. The Zeus network had been humanity's most closely guarded secret, built in anticipation of this very scenario. The galaxy thought they understood humanity's capabilities, but they had only seen what humans chose to show them. In the depths of space, the alien blockade maintained its vigil. Commander Zephan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Fist, watching the sensor displays. Status report. All grid positions secure. Commander, his tactical officer, reported. No human vessels have attempted to breach the perimeter in the past 6 hours. Their resistance appears to be weakening. Zephan's scaled lips curved in what might have been a smile. As expected, humans are impulsive but not foolish. They will accept their fate. Deep within the Zeus facility, alarms began to sound. Dr. Chan's console blazed with activity as quantum field calculations reached critical mass. Power at 70% and climbing. Gravitational sensors detecting formation of localized space-time distortions. Sarah gripped the railing as the facility trembled. Are we sure this won't tear the planet apart? 97% sure, Chen replied with dark humor. The other 3% is why they built 12 backup facilities. Admiral Harrison received reports from across the solar system. Mars base confirms ZEUS-2 is online. Luna reports full synchronization. The network is active. Above them, the first signs of ZUS's awakening became visible. Aurora-like phenomena danced across Earth's magnetic field as exotic particles interacted with the planet's natural defenses. Radio communications across the globe reported strange interference patterns in the alien blockade. Sensor operators began reporting anomalies. Commander, we're detecting massive gravitational fluctuations throughout the system. The readings don't match any known human technology. Zephan frowned at the tactical display. Investigate immediately. Deploy scanner drones to map these distortions. But as the alien probe craft approached the source of the anomalies, they encountered something unprecedented. Space itself seemed to rebel against their presence. Navigation systems failed as gravitational fields shifted randomly. Communications arrays sparked and died as quantum interference overwhelmed their circuits. Dr. Chen watched the alien fleet's confusion with grim satisfaction. Zeus is functioning perfectly. Their sensors can't penetrate the quantum static we're generating. To them, the entire solar system just became a black hole of information. The moment humanity had been preparing for since first contact had arrived. The galaxy had tried to cage Earth, but they had awakened something they didn't understand. Humanity's true strength wasn't in accepting limits, it was in refusing to acknowledge them. As the exotic matter sphere reached full rotation, casting strange shadows that defied physics, Dr. Chen spoke into his communicator. Madam President, Zeus is fully operational. Phase 1 is complete. Elena's voice crackled through the quantum encrypted channel. Then it's time to remind the galaxy who they're dealing with. Initiate Phase 2. Zeus rises. The quantum field around Earth pulsed like a heartbeat as Zeus reached full operational capacity. In the hidden facility beneath the Arctic ice, Dr. Marcus Chen monitored readings that would have been considered impossible by galactic science just hours before. Exotic matter streams flowed through conduits carved from crystallized space-time itself, while gravitational waves rippled outward in carefully controlled patterns. Field coherence at maximum, Chen announced, his voice tight with concentration. The entire solar system is now within our influence sphere. Captain Sarah Mitchell studied the tactical hologram floating above the command center. Red dots marked the positions of alien blockade ships, now scattered and confused as their sensors fed them contradictory data. How long before they realize what's happening? They already know something's wrong, Admiral Harrison replied, monitoring intercepted alien communications. But they can't comprehend what they're seeing. Zeus is operating on principles their science considers theoretical. At best. President Elena Vasquez's voice echoed through the facility from her secure bunker in Geneva. The world is watching, people. Riots have broken out in 12 major cities. The lunar colonies are reporting critical life support failures. We need to act now. Chen's fingers danced across the quantum interface. Initiating space-time displacement protocol. All human vessels within the system prepare for field activation. Above Earth's atmosphere, the first miracle occurred. The crippled transport ship, Prometheus, carrying refugees from the outer colonies, suddenly vanished from alien sensors. But it hadn't been destroyed, had been wrapped in a pocket of folded space that rendered it invisible to conventional detection. Commander Zephin paced the bridge of his flagship, his scaled hide flushed with agitation. Report, where did that vessel go? His sensor operator, a multi-eyed Kethter, clicked its mandibles in confusion. Commander, it simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next our instruments show empty space. Impossible. No known human technology can achieve true invisibility. Perhaps, the alien tactical officer suggested, it was destroyed so completely that no debris remains. But even as they spoke, more impossible things began happening throughout the blockade fleet. Navigation systems reported contradictory positions, placing ships simultaneously in multiple locations. Communication arrays picked up transmissions from vessels that sensors insisted weren't there. Most disturbing of all, some ships found themselves unable to maintain position, as if the very space around them had become unstable. In the Zeus facility, Sarah Mitchell coordinated with resistance cells across human space. Phoenix Squadron, you are clear for departure. New Shanghai orbital platform, begin evacuation procedures. One by one, human vessels that had been trapped within the blockade began to move. But they didn't break through the alien perimeter, they simply stepped around it, using corridors of twisted space-time that Zeus carved through the quantum foam. Dr. Chen monitored the exotic matter core as it spun faster, its surface now blazing with energy that made the chamber bright as day. We're approaching critical resonance. Once we reach full synchronization with the galactic quantum field, we can extend our influence beyond the solar system. The implications were staggering. Zeus wasn't just a defensive system, it was humanity's key to the galaxy. By manipulating the fundamental structure of space itself, they could travel anywhere, undetected and unstoppable. Admiral Harrison received the first reports from human vessels beyond the blockade. Madame President, the cargo ship Defiance has successfully reached Alpha Centauri. They report no pursuit and no detection by hegemony forces. Elena's voice carried a note of fierce satisfaction. Then it's time to send our message. Dr. Chen, open a channel to the Galactic Federation Council. The quantum array reconfigured itself, tapping into the galaxy's communication network with subtle manipulations that bypassed every security protocol. Within moments, Elena's image appeared on screens across 47 worlds, interrupting regular broadcasts and emergency sessions alike. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, her voice calm but carrying an edge of steel, "you have made a grave error. You believed that isolating humanity would break our spirit, force us to accept subjugation. Instead, you have given us the greatest gift possible, the absolute necessity of becoming something greater than you imagined." In the Galactic Federation Council chamber, Ambassador Crystal watched in horror as human ships appeared on sensors throughout the galaxy. Not just a few vessels, but hundreds, emerging from quantum distortions that shouldn't exist. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No species has ever mastered large-scale space-time manipulation." Elena continued her broadcast, her image unwavering, despite the chaos erupting across the galaxy. "For too long, humanity has played by rules written by those who fear our potential. We have accepted limitations imposed by species who mistake stagnation for stability. That ends today." Commander Zephan watched his mighty blockade fleet struggle with systems that no longer obeyed physical laws. "All ships converge on Earth. We must stop whatever they're doing." But as the alien vessels moved toward the planet, they encountered something unprecedented. Space itself resisted their passage. Ships found themselves moving backward despite engines at full power. Others discovered they were traveling in circles, trapped in loops of distorted space-time. Dr. Chen smiled grimly as he monitored the alien fleet's struggles. "Zeus isn't just hiding our ships, it's rewriting the rules of navigation within our sphere of influence. They can't reach us because we control the very medium they travel through." The exotic matter core reached critical resonance, its rotation generating standing waves that propagated throughout the galaxy at faster than light speeds. On every world, in every system, sensitive instruments detected the impossible signature of controlled gravitational manipulation on a cosmic scale. President Elena's broadcast reached its climax. "To those who would be our allies, our markets remain open and our friendship is freely given. But to those who seek to cage humanity, know this: we are no longer bound by your limitations. We have awakened something that has slept since the universe was young, and we will use it to secure our freedom." The first human battle fleet materialized. At the edge of the Zarian system, their ships phasing in from quantum tunnels that had carried them across hundreds of light years in minutes. But these weren't the crude vessels the aliens had dismissed before. Enhanced with Zeus technology, they moved through space like sharks through water, untouchable and unstoppable. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned Dreadnought Prometheus, watching as Zarian defense forces scrambled to respond to their impossible arrival. "This is Captain Mitchell of the United Earth Defense Force. We are not here to conquer, but to demonstrate. Your people voted to imprison humanity. Today you learn the cost of underestimating us." The human fleet didn't fire a shot. They didn't need to. Their mere presence, achieved through technology that violated every principle of galactic science, sent a message more powerful than any weapon. Humanity had transcended the limitations that other species accepted as universal law. Back in the Zeus facility, Dr. Chen monitored quantum fluctuations across the galaxy as panic spread through the alien civilizations. "The network is stable. We can maintain this level of reality manipulation indefinitely. Admiral Harrison coordinated with human forces across known space. All objectives achieved. Our people are free, our technology is secure, and our message has been delivered. Elena's final words echoed through the galaxy. The stars belong to those bold enough to claim them. Humanity has claimed not just our right to the stars, but our right to rewrite the very laws that govern them. We offer partnership to those wise enough to accept us as equals. To the rest, we offer this warning: ever again attempt to cage what you cannot comprehend. As the broadcast ended, the Galactic Federation faced a new reality. Humanity hadn't just broken their blockade, they had shattered the fundamental assumptions upon which galactic civilization was built. Species that had ruled for millennia now found themselves dealing with beings who could step outside the universe itself and reshape it to their will. In the depths of space, Commander Zephin watched helplessly as his blockade fleet remained trapped in loops of impossible geometry. His career, his people's dominance, everything he had known was crumbling around the simple fact that humanity refused to accept limits. The Zeus network pulsed with power, its exotic matter cores spinning in perfect synchronization across the solar system. Humanity had awakened something ancient and terrible and beautiful, the power to say no to the universe itself and make it listen. As human ships spread across the galaxy like drops of mercury through a vast web, carrying trade and technology and the irrepressible human spirit to worlds that had never imagined such possibilities, one truth became clear to all who witnessed. The stars, had not been blocked from Earth. Earth had been blocked from the stars. And now, nothing in the universe could hold humanity back.